The majority of the people I work with have tremendous levels of success, but they are very, very unhappy. And they're unhappy because they have done what society has told them would make them feel the most fulfilled. And for the majority of them, that is to build a big business, to have stability, to have structure, to drive a nice car, to live in a nice house, to have the trophy partner, etc. But it does not feel like it's giving them what they want. And that's because they're ignoring that deeper inner desire. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast, a space dedicated to one belief that you have the power within to create everything you seek. So if you are ready to step into a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with me. I'm your host, Rudi Riekstins, and this is the Empowered Life. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins. I am your host, and today we're going to be talking about what is in the gap for the majority of people. And what I mean by in the gap is every single person on the planet has a dream or a goal or wants to do or achieve something, but for some reason this seems to evade them. And I want to talk today about what it is that I see behind the curtain with some of the highest performers in the world. I go into organizations and I work with either executive teams, leaders of organizations, or startup entrepreneurs, people that have achieved tremendous levels of success. And my work is to get them to get to the next level and to bring their entire teams, the entire business, to that next level with them. As an individual grows, they so often outgrow the people around them. And so it is vitally important to bring this level of high performance into a business. But I do get to see what holds so many people back. And with every single leader that I've ever worked with, and I've said this countless times, I've never met an individual who has ever achieved their highest and greatest potential, meaning there's just so much more that we are capable of doing or capable of achieving. I use the example of Elon Musk, and we see how many different industries this man has touched, the level of net worth that he has been able to accumulate. And looking at somebody who has literally revolutionized 6 or 7 different industries, we're not even talking about 6 or 7 companies in his field. He has touched so many different industries, and he's taken every one of those industries to the next level. And when I look at him from afar, I still ask myself, what else is he capable of achieving? Because he has not achieved his potential. When I see the level of worth that he has, net worth that he has, when I see the level of genius that he brings to everything that he touches, what else could he be doing? And I want to turn that back onto you. And I want you to think about, where are you in your life? What have you achieved? And what is still available to you? And the real thing that I want to bring awareness to today is that every single person on the planet has come here to achieve something truly profound. I do believe individually and collectively, we've all come here to change the world. And some of us meet that level of expectation, and some of us never even touch the surface. My hope today is to show you a little bit around some of the patterns that I've been able to identify by working with some of the highest achievers and then getting them to that next level of growth whilst bringing everybody around with them. So whether you're an individual or whether you are somebody leading a group of individuals, I want you to walk away from this episode today really contemplative around where are you in this, and then also how do you bring people around you to be able to reach and achieve that next level of growth, because there's always more. And when I say there's always more, I don't mean in greed. I don't mean, we have to make more money and what's the next thing. It's about creation. We were created by a creative force, and every single human being is connected to that energy that created the universe. And when we think about the fact that we are an extension of that force and that we were created for the sole purpose of coming here to create, then should we not be asking the question, what are we meant to be creating next? And that, my belief is, when we stop creating, well, then it's time to die. Then we're crossing back over to the other side and it's the end of the game. But if we're still here, we should be asking the question, what's next? What are we going to be pouring our very powerful creative energy into next. Now, when I walk out on stage, and I've asked this question on the podcast before, what dream, goal, or desire do you have? And for the majority of people, they've had that dream, goal, or desire for more than 5 years, and they haven't been able to achieve that, meaning there's something on their heart that they want. I'm going to say the same for you right now. What is on your heart? What is that thing that you want to achieve that you haven't been able to achieve? And why have you had that goal for more than 5 years, but you know we're closer to achieving it? And here's what I keep coming up against. There are a number of things that really prevent people from stepping into the full power or potential of who they are and what is truly available for them. And the very first thing that I want to bring your awareness to is that the majority of people, they have an idea of what they want. They have a goal, they have a desire, but they don't have a vision around that goal or desire. So when I ask audiences, do you have a dream? The answer is yes. Say, have you achieved that yet? The answer is no. Said, have you had that dream for more than a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? And the majority of the audience, 5 years. And when I say to them to individually break down, what is that vision that they have for themselves for the next 5 years? What would that look like? This is where people get stuck. So they have the goal, but they don't have clarity around the goal. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to get so clear today on who you are, who you've come here to be, and then how do you plan on getting to what it is that you want? Can you break it down into these micro steps of, if I take this committed action today, it's going to compound and eventually I'm going to get to this direction. But we need to know where we are going with absolute certainty, with absolute clarity, because if we don't have that vision, then we're not going to do the necessary work in order to get there. I was on a call with one of my clients, one-on-one coaching clients yesterday. This is an 8-figure entrepreneur that has achieved, again, tremendous levels of success, but feels so deeply unfulfilled in their life. They have many areas that are not working. This is mostly associated around love and really good, meaningful friendships, but money, they have plenty. Success, business, cars, houses, etc., they have an abundance. But the thing that we're all seeking is deep, meaningful connection. And on my coaching call with this individual, they turned around and they said, I can totally see why so many people globally don't do the inner work. And I was like, what do you mean? And they said, because the inner work is so hard. They're like, to really ask these deeper questions of ourselves, this is painful. This is what pain really is. They said it's easy to avoid doing the work. It's easy to not really dream. It's easy to not ask the hard questions. It's easy to not look internally, because the pain that you feel in not doing that are these micro moments of pain over a long period of time. And that somehow is palatable. But the minute we start asking the deeper questions of ourselves, wow, now we really have to sit in the pain. And here's what I want you to walk away with from that is, there is a desire inside of you, and something is preventing you from taking the necessary steps in order to be able to achieve that. And it's not asking the really good questions. It's not asking the hard questions. Who do you want to be? Why have you not been able to achieve that? What would it feel like for you to be able to achieve it? Where are the parts of you that you don't want to look at, that you don't want to touch, that you don't want to talk about, that you don't want to sit in, that you don't want to feel, because that is adding up to the version of you that you are aspiring to become. And without asking those deeper, harder questions, you're never going to be able to get to that next level. And when you achieve that next level, that is the benefit. That's the benefit in all of it, because it's the reward is so incredibly sweet. But we have to push through a little bit in order to be able to get there. And so I want you to clarify today, really, I'm going to use that word again, clarify today, what is the vision that you have? And unapologetically, who do you want to be? And what will it feel like in order for you to be able to achieve that? Imagine you have realized that goal, and you were to turn around and look back at yourself and just be so proud of what you've done, proud of who you are, proud of the impact that you've created. I want you to, with clarity, have that vision for yourself. And I use that word clarity now 3 or 4 times. And the reason is because most people have the idea of what they want, but they're not crystal clear on what it would look like. And I want you to get crystal clear. Once you've become crystal clear, the number one thing that prevents people from achieving the thing that they want is their belief in their worthiness to have it. And so I want you to really get clear on not only the goal of what you want, but on your worthiness to actually achieve that. And in group programs, I love to remind people you're connected to that same force and flow that created the universe. You are an extension of this benevolence. And the dream, the goal, the desire, the thing that is on your heart, that didn't come from just you one day waking up and deciding, I really want to create this thing. I really want to have this thing. I believe that these are seeds of desire that have been planted on you. They are coded in your DNA. They're part of your remembrance. And it is your responsibility to activate that remembrance within your physiological state, within the cells, within the DNA, and then to bring that forward and out and into the world. I said a moment ago that every single person on the planet has come here to change the world. Everybody. Not everybody's going to. But the thing that you really want for your life, that if you achieve that penultimate goal, well, I believe that is when you would create the greatest impact, because you would be leading by example. You'd be in your flow, that when you have a full cup, you would have more to pour out and over. And that is when we are living the potential of who it is that we ultimately came here to achieve. I think it's in the journey of getting there that we bring the teachings to the masses. And so when you have a clear goal of who you want to be, and then you remember that goal, that desire, that wasn't you one day just from an egoic perspective decided that's what you wanted. That's really a remembrance within you. And that means that came from somewhere. And I believe God placed that on your heart, within your DNA, for you to remember so that you could journey back to yourself. And the entire purpose of this life is to evolve, is to grow, and yes, to remember who you really are and who it is that you came here to be. I can tell you now, my whole life, I've always known I wanted to create profound impact. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a motivator. I want to remind people. And that was from a very young age. And I didn't believe I was worthy of doing it, so I didn't do it. And when you realize that your belief in your worthiness to do something, for me, I used to say, oh, well, who's going to listen to me? What have I ever done that is worthy of somebody else's time, effort, or attention? In becoming worthy, in realizing that I have always been worthy because I'm connected to this flow and I'm connected to this force, and in and of itself is worthiness. And when I started to actually show up as a teacher, when I started to teach from my lived experience, when I started to say, hey, I've navigated this and this is the tool I use to get there, was when I started to expand and step into that role. I don't believe that I would ever feel the levels of joy and fulfillment and freedom that I feel had I not been the teacher. And I could have achieved success in many other ways, but it would always feel empty. Which brings me to another thing that I see come up so often in high achievers in today's day and age. The majority of the people I work with have tremendous levels of success, but they are very, very unhappy. And they're unhappy because they have done what society has told them would make them feel the most fulfilled. And for the majority of them, that is to build a big business, to have stability, to have structure, to drive a nice car, to live in a nice house, to have the trophy partner, etc. But it does not feel like it's giving them what they want. And that's because they're ignoring that deeper inner desire. The majority of people come to me because they want to grow and scale a business. They want to develop their teams. They want to create more wealth. And then very quickly, they realize that the work that we're doing is deeper. It is connecting to the authenticity of who they are. It's connecting to the essence and the truth of them. And then all of a sudden, different goals starts to come to the surface. There are goals of like, I want to be a speaker. I want to be a TED speaker. I want to write a book. I want to create a podcast. I want to start a new foundation. I want to give my wealth away. And all of a sudden, they become very, very different because they're now starting to pay attention to that inner yearning and that desire. And that is where the true levels of joy, fulfillment, and yes, freedom truly come from. And so for you, where are you not living in that truth? And what is it that's holding you back from being able to do it? Because our beliefs really govern so many of our actions. I've said to you before, and I'm dismantling a whole series of things that I see preventing people from living their true, authentic purpose. And that is they don't have the clear vision because they don't believe that they are worthy of that vision and that they need to rewrite or rewire their beliefs. Now, to remind you, a belief is purely, simply a thought. It is a thought that you've had again and again until eventually your brain says that's who you are. And in order to change a belief, you just have to change your thinking, change the thought pattern around that subject. And so, could you shift your belief from, well, I have this desire, I want to achieve this thing, I'm worthy of achieving this thing because I'm connected to this benevolence. And if I have the desire, where did it come from? And because I have it, could I just honor that? And then what would I need to do to start to believe that that vision is for me, that I'm capable of achieving that, and that in achieving that, who would I become? And what would be the legacy I would leave behind? And when I say legacy, I don't mean how people are going to see you or revere you. I mean the impact that you create in the ripple effects of you living your highest and your greatest potential, because that's the true legacy. It's when people start to wake up to their truth, to see who they can be, what they can do. And only when you're doing that are you going to realize that in taking these micro steps, are you starting to rewrite your belief in the vision that you are worthy of having it, that you're worthy of doing it, and that other people are seeing you do it, that you're supporting them in turning on their light bulbs for them to start asking the deeper questions within themselves of who do they want to be and what do they want to achieve so they can start taking those corrective steps. When I break it down, the number one reason the majority of people do not achieve what they want is because they don't take action. And they don't take action because they don't believe. They don't believe because they don't think that what they want is possible for them. And so, do you see how interwoven every single one of these are? And it's because it is truly like a tapestry. What we want needs to be very clear. And so when we are clear on what we want, we start to question whether we're worthy of that, whether we're good enough for that, whether we are deserving of that. And in asking the question, we can start to dismantle it. And for us to know whether or not we believe it is to see if we're taking action towards it. If we're not taking the action, it's the evidence, that is the end result evidence that we still don't believe. And that when we start to believe, we'll start to take more action. You see, I wanted to be a speaker, I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to be an impact-driven individual, somebody supporting other people and living their highest and their greatest potential. But I never showed up online. I would tell people, oh, I don't post on Instagram, I don't like it, oh, I don't like the fakeness of social media. And you know what? I don't like the fakeness of social media, but that was a cop-out. I wasn't filming videos. I wasn't posting content. I wasn't writing a newsletter. I wasn't creating courses and programs because I didn't believe anybody would want them. I didn't believe that my words carried value. And so the inaction that I was taking was just highlighting that I still didn't believe. And the only way to build belief in an area like that is to start taking action. And so you're putting the cart in front of the horse or the horse in front of the cart, and you're starting to move them forward. And at some point, you have to start taking action for you to start seeing the evidence. I think it took me 3 years to start producing my newsletter. And yet I had this desire to create a weekly newsletter. But I would see other people's newsletters and I wouldn't want to subscribe to them. I'd be irritated when I was subscribed to somebody else's newsletter when I didn't intentionally go in and subscribe. I maybe clicked on a link and now all of a sudden I get spammed every single day. And I despised that. And I never want somebody else to feel that way about me. And so I avoided creating a newsletter. But I had the desire to write a newsletter. I had a desire to every single week tap into what am I going through? What am I experiencing? And how can I turn around and lessen somebody else's time in that experience, meaning in the pain, if I just shared my experience. And that was my soul telling me, Rudi, this is meant for you. Rudi, you're meant to do this. I would sit down and I would write 1 or 2 pages of copy. And then I would be like, no, 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 not yet. Who's going to read it? Oh, this isn't the right time. Oh, I don't want to interrupt people. I'm going to spam people. And 3 years in, one day I woke up and I just said, you know what? The desire has outgrown the pain of the potential of rejection. And so I started a newsletter. And I had hardly any people downloading or subscribing. And it compounded and compounded and compounded. And now my Miracle Monday newsletter has thousands of readers. Out of my podcast, out of my courses, my speaking, every single thing that I do, I get more interaction every single week from my Miracle Monday newsletter than anything else that I do. I'm not saying more people read the newsletter than listen to the podcast, or more people read the newsletter than I speak to in front of audiences. I didn't say that. I said I get more engagement. I get more back and forth dialogue from people who read my Miracle Monday newsletter than anything else that I do. It's one of the areas of my life that brings me the highest levels of fulfillment, satisfaction, where I actually see tangible evidence that I'm creating and touching people's lives. Every week, in my Miracle Monday newsletter, somebody will react, respond. I will get a slew of messages from people either responding directly to the email itself or through social media or through a messaging service. People will respond saying, I needed to hear this today. Thank you so much for this, asking deeper questions. And that to me is another form of validation that I'm taking the right steps to be able to move forward. That's where my total level of joy and fulfillment comes from, is seeing the benefits of the work that I'm doing. Not counting the money I'm making, not looking at the forward movement in other areas. It's in the interaction with people. And every single week when I write a newsletter and I send it out and I receive the responses back and I'm interacting with people, and they're strangers, somebody I've never met, somebody I have no idea who they are, where they find themselves in life, but now we're in a dialogue. That to me is my highest level of joy, fulfillment, and freedom. And so when I read these letters, when I read the responses, I'm always asking myself, what would it have looked like if I had done this 3 years earlier? What would my level of impact have been had I started 3 years earlier? How many more people would be reading it today? And how many people did I prevent from being able to navigate a very difficult situation or circumstance because I failed to take that level of action? And so my question for you today is, what is that thing that you want to do and you haven't been doing because you haven't believed that you're worthy of doing it? And that could be conscious or it could be unconscious. I actively avoided taking steps. For the majority of people, they don't realize they're not actively taking the steps. They're not actively creating clarity around the vision because they don't believe it. And you cannot take steps towards achieving something, meaning the daily compounded steps towards a goal, if you don't have clarity around the goal and if you don't believe that you're worthy of creating that. And so I'm going to challenge you today to start to clarify the vision, to question yourself on whether you believe you're worthy of that, and then to look for the evidence of the action or the inaction around you as if it were a neutral event. You either did or you didn't take steps. And if you're not taking steps, it's coming back to your belief in whether you think that that's something you are worthy of, or whether you deserve it, or whether it will work if you do it. And if you took compounded actionable steps every single day, you're going to be able to achieve your goal. I bring this work into companies. I actually host these programs called the Elevated Leadership Training Program, and it's a 4-month curated container where I take people through 10 to 12 people at a time through this content. And the results that are produced inside of this container in 4 months is unheard of. It's revolutionary because people come in and I help them clarify what their goal is. And in clarifying what their goal is, we start to look at what are the beliefs that they have around this goal and why have they not been able to take the steps. When we shift those beliefs and we have the clear vision, all of a sudden, taking the steps becomes inevitable. And when people start taking compounded steps in a really short, concentrated period of time, they achieve these impossible goals and they achieve them in a matter of months. So if I can get somebody to write a book in 4 months, speak on a stage, to create a whole new company, to fall in love, to find their soulmate, whatever their massive goal is that they've always wanted, and we could do that in such a short amount of time, what would it look like if somebody took that and they applied that into their life and they did that literally 3 times in one calendar year? They would achieve more in 1 year than they've achieved in their entire life. We're talking about big, audacious, I love to use the terminology, impossible goals, because for so many people, they feel impossible. And when we shift that and we start taking the action and we achieve it, it begs the beautiful question that I love to ask on the podcast is, well, what's next? If I could achieve that now, what is next for me? And now we're starting to only tap into the potential of who it is that we've come here to be. When we are working with teams and we're wanting to bring entire teams forward to that next level of growth, the thing that I see that holds so many individuals back, and that when individuals lead people holding larger teams back, is a lack of expectation or standards. Now, many leaders have a standard: be at work at 8, leave at 5, do this by this timeline. But it's in the micro moments where people don't have these levels of expectation. And it's expectation for how they are showing up in their life. And then it's the expectation that they have on other people. And I really want you to question today, what are your standards for yourself? And you could start this process anywhere. You don't need the clear vision yet if you start with standards. But if you start with standards, you're going to have to clarify your vision. If you start with vision, at some point, you're going to have to get to what is the standard that you were setting for yourself. And so the standard is, what are you committed as the minimum expectation for yourself and for your life? And if I have a expectation, a minimum standard of who am I, how am I going to be, what am I going to do, it's going to have the impact on every other area of my life. But far too many leaders inside of businesses and far too many people who are meant to be leading their lives, they don't have a standard for themselves. We go to a restaurant and we have a standard or an expectation of how we want our meal to be prepared and how we want the temperature to be, and for the ambiance and for the volume of the music and for maybe the conversation or for the company. But what we don't often do is have expectations and standards for ourselves. I am somebody who is very, very strict and unbelievably disciplined for myself, for my family, for my spouse, for my friends, for my business, because I have a very high expectation of what I want for me and for my teams, what I want for my clients. I hold people to the highest standard because my job is to put people onto that highest level pedestal, so much so, and to reinforce them on that pedestal so they start to see themselves there, so they no longer need my support to be there. But I do that for everybody, whether they're a client, whether it's a friend, whether it's a neighbor. My expectations are extremely high. And those expectations start with myself. When I hold myself on a pedestal, when I say it's really important for me to be the best teacher that I can be, and in order to be the best teacher that I can be, well, then I'm going to have to go to bed at an early time so I can get maximum deep sleep, so that I can wake up tomorrow morning at an early time so I can prepare my mind, my body, so that I can be the best I can be. That is me setting that standard or expectation. But far too many people, they don't take themselves seriously enough. And I want you to think what I'm saying there. They don't take themselves seriously enough to set the high expectation for themselves, but they have a high expectation maybe for their team, or they have a high expectation for their partner, or they have a high expectation for their business. But you've got to start with yourself. And you've got to ask yourself, do you take yourself seriously? And so inside of these containers that I host, we always bring in the awareness to whatever it is that you're doing for yourself. Are you expecting that highest level of who you are and how you show up? This has impacts in every single area of your life. You've heard the phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything. How you show up here is impacting how you show up there. And for me, my standard of expectation for myself is so high because I take myself that seriously. that then supports me to take other people that seriously. And when other people see that I take myself more seriously than anyone else, it also gives me permission to hold them to that standard. And when I'm doing that for myself, I'm not only leading by example, but I'm also saying, like, hey, what I ask of you, I'm asking of myself first. And then it gives other people permission to do it for themselves as well. I do believe that the tide raises all ships in the harbor, and that when you elevate your level of standard or your level of expectation for self, that also gives other people the example of what does it look like to be able to do that. When I'm out for an event and everybody is going to dinner at 9 p.m. at night, and I say, I'm going to go to bed because tomorrow morning I've got to be up at 4 because I have to meditate, because I have to do my routine so that when we are back in this conference room at 8 a.m., I'm ready to go. That in that moment is me setting a really high expectation of what do I need in order to be the best that I can be tomorrow. And you know what? Sometimes people say, oh, you know what? I think you're right. I think we should have an early night. Sometimes they're not ready yet and they go out and they have fun. But the next morning, when they see me fresh, ready, and I'm creating the impact that I'm intending to, it starts to chip away at what they've been doing and they start to question what they should be doing. So many times people come back to me after the fact and say, man, I really didn't understand what you were doing then, or I didn't understand why you were so strict or stringent at that time. And now I see, and now I do it too. And now I'm encouraging other people to do the same thing. And so I want you to start asking yourself, where are you not taking yourself seriously enough? And where can you start to have high standards and expectations for yourself? And then start with you first. And then you start to have higher levels of expectations for other people. When I'm teaching in my elevated leadership program for people to have the highest levels of standard or expectations for themselves, it includes what they're doing, but also how they're doing it and what they're saying. And so we elevate the entire process of communication, because that communication first starts internally with you. Do you feel worthy? Is this the minimum expectation? Could you do it better? And that then has a knock-on effect. But we also need to take that and extend it out and around us. And so when I'm communicating, I have very high expectations of what people's actions are, but also how I communicate and how I allow people to communicate back to me. Because all of this is going to fit into what it is that I'm wanting to do or what I'm wanting to support other people in being able to do. And so I want you to start paying attention to not only the actions that you are taking out in the world, the standards that you set for yourself around those actions or inactions, but also how are you communicating about them. And when you think about how you communicate, the actual communication, the terminology that you use is going to give you a window into what is happening in your unconscious mind. How are you showing up? How are you not showing up? What are you doing? What are you not doing? I was recently having a conversation with somebody who, again, I remind you, very successful, has achieved tremendous levels of growth, but they have an area of their life where they're really struggling. And they were asking me, from my vantage point, why are they not able to achieve this? And I said to them, well, 3 times you've used this terminology. And in using that terminology, it tells me that you're living in a victim mentality and you think poor you and that the world owes you a favor. And they said, well, that's not who I am at all. I've never been that way. And I was like, well, when we look at the words you're using, can we see that you use this phrase here, and that's consistently a pattern? And that if 3 is a pattern and you've spoken about it from this vantage point, that if we've said it, that's probably something that we believe. And there was an aha moment. This individual actually broke into tears, grown man, broke down into tears and said, oh my gosh, I just realized I've lived my whole life through that lens. That is now showing us where is the pattern. And when we can unlock that through listening to the terminology, through listening to the terminology we allow and enable in other people, then all of a sudden that is setting the foundation for what is our expectation, what is our standard, what do we allow or tolerate. And if we can listen to those words spoken from ourselves or from other people and start to course correct what it is that we're saying, what it is that we're experiencing, what it is that we're allowing or tolerating, it changes everything. If you are in a relationship and somebody speaks to you in a way that is less than desirable, and you don't ever correct them, you let them speak to you in that tone, or you let them maybe ignore you, whatever the pattern or the behavior is, that is coming back to your unworthiness in having a better quality relationship, or your unworthiness in feeling a certain way, valued, appreciated, etc. And because you're tolerating it means you don't believe that that is something that is meant for you. But if you are able to catch the pattern or the behavior and to have a higher standard, higher expectation, man, I don't deserve that. I'm worthy of more, or I'm committed to doing this to change because I believe you deserve more. Now we start to elevate every single person around us. The standard is now raised, the expectation becomes more. And the final point that I want to make today comes back to consistency. You see, we have to consistently take committed action towards our vision. We have to consistently reinforce our belief in our worthiness to be able to have it. We need to consistently set that standard and not waver. If we have the standard today, but tomorrow we're tired, or we didn't get as much sleep, or maybe we just don't feel like it in that moment, and we drop that standard, we're never going to reinforce what it is that we're wanting and what it is that we're wanting to achieve. All of what I've shared with you today can make all the common sense in the world, but it doesn't mean anything unless we take this and somehow put it into action. When you take all of what I've just shared with you today and you reinforce this every single day in every single area of your life, and you do it again and again and again, and you compound this, all of a sudden your life is very, very different in a very, very short amount of time. And now you've leveled up to a new standard or a new expectation. And then your work is to do it again. And then you do it again. And then you continue to do it again. And that is how high performers and high achievers achieve the levels of success that they've been able to achieve. But it doesn't have to be hard. And it doesn't have to be painful. And it doesn't have to be an arduous process. But it is going to take consistency, and it is going to take reinforcement, and it is going to take a commitment from you. So I have two invitations for you today. The first is I want to invite you to commit to you, to your goal, to your vision, to who you want to be, to what it's going to look like. And could you systematically go back, question what it is that you want, your worthiness in being able to have it, to analyze the evidence that is around you. Are you taking action? Do you believe it? Are you reinforcing it? Do you take action every day? Do you have a standard or expectation that meets that? What is the standard and the expectation that you're seeing being reinforced by the people that are around you? And if you took yourself seriously enough to believe that what you want is for you, and that if you took action, you could achieve it, then where would you go in your life and what would it look like? My second invitation for you is that if you want support in this area, I am opening up for the very first time my Elevated Leadership Program, which is typically reserved for my corporate clients. And I'm going to be opening this up to the public. It's going to be 10 to 12 people where I'm going to systematically hold your hand and walk you through to achieve that impossible goal that you've always wanted to achieve. And we're going to do it in a matter of months. It is powerful, it is profound, and it is by far the single greatest level of impact that I have created in my life's work, in my body of work. And you get to be a part of it. If this is something that is of interest to you, I want you to send me a message, reach out to me. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for you to learn more about this program, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with you to see if this is a fit for you or if this is something you want to bring into your company. But every single person that I've ever met that has a dream or a goal or a desire, it always comes down to one of the key points that I've mentioned with you today. They either don't have clarity around the vision because they don't believe they're worthy in it, they're not taking the necessary steps, or they are missing the standard and they just need to elevate these areas. And that when we do, the impossible becomes possible. Because I remind you that the word impossible is just I'm possible. And everything is possible when you believe in you. I love you so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for listening to the Empowered Life podcast. I hope that this was thought-provoking and it was gnawing at you, and that you are starting to question, what is your vision? And what are you doing or not doing in order to get you there? I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next episode of the Empowered Life Podcast. Until next time, goodbye. If this episode gave you clarity, peace, or a perspective shift, hold on to that. And here is how you lock it in. Subscribe so that you keep building momentum week after week. And if you're the kind of person that believes a good message should travel, please leave a review. Reviews aren't just ratings. There are signals that help this reach the people who are ready for it. And then share this episode with somebody you love, someone you lead, or somebody that you were rooting for. Links are in the show notes so that you can connect with me online and on Instagram. Now go out there and take one beautiful, bold, and aligned step and make it count. I'm going to catch you on the next episode of the Empowered Life Podcast.